It was a humid afternoon in March 1955 in Montgomery, Alabama, a city divided by invisible lines and unwritten rules. The sun burned against the cracked sidewalks as a 15-year-old girl named Claudette Colvin boarded a crowded bus, her school books pressed tightly to her chest. She was tired, not just from the long day at school, but from years of walking beneath the heavy shadow of segregation. Back then, the buses were a moving symbol of oppression. White passengers sat in the front, black passengers in the back. If the bus filled up, black riders had to stand, even if there were empty seats, just to make room for white passengers. Claudette knew the rule. Everyone did. But that day, something inside her refused to bow. As the bus rumbled down Dexter Avenue, a white woman boarded and looked toward Claudette's row. The driver turned and barked, "You need to get up." Claudette's hands tightened around her books. Her heart raced. She thought of Harriet Tubman. She thought of Sojourner Truth. And then, in a steady voice, she said no. The bus went silent. Every sound, the hum of the engine, the shuffle of feet, vanished into the weight of her single word. The driver shouted again. Passengers stared, but Claudette stayed seated. "I paid my fare. It's my constitutional right," she said. Moments later, two police officers stormed aboard. They grabbed the small girl by her arms, yanking her from her seat. Her school books scattered across the floor. As they dragged her off the bus, she screamed, "It's my right to sit here!" But her cries fell on deaf ears. At just 15, Claudette Colvin was handcuffed, arrested, and thrown into an adult jail, alone, terrified, yet unbroken. No reporters came, no crowds gathered. In 1955, there were no cameras to capture her courage. She sat in that cold cell, her heart pounding, tears drying on her cheeks, realizing that she had done something extraordinary, something dangerous. But she wasn't thinking of fame. She was thinking of justice. In the days that followed, word spread quietly through the black community. Some called her brave, others said she was reckless, but none could ignore what she had done. A teenager had stood up to the system that even grown men feared. Yet when leaders of the civil rights movement discussed using her case as a rallying point, they hesitated. Claudette was young, poor, and outspoken. Some thought she was too rebellious. Others feared the world wouldn't rally behind a teenage girl. So the world forgot her name. Months later, another woman, Rosa Parks, would make the same brave choice on that same city's buses. But long before Rosa Parks, there was Claudette Colvin, the teenager who refused to give up her seat. Claudette Colvin's arrest sent shockwaves through Montgomery's black community, but instead of parades or protests, there was silence. Fear wrapped around the people like a heavy cloak. Fear of losing jobs, homes, or even their lives. Yet beneath that silence, something powerful was stirring. Claudette's defiance had planted a seed, one that no jail cell could contain. Days turned into weeks, and the young girl who had defied an entire system went back to school, her classmates watching her with awe and whispers. Teachers told her she was brave and reckless. Her family worried, but deep down, Claudette knew something had changed forever. Then, months later, history repeated itself. Another seamstress, Rosa Parks, refused to give up her seat. This time the cameras came, the crowds rallied, and the civil rights movement erupted into action. But few knew that Claudette had done it first, and that her courage had inspired the movement's very core. Claudette wasn't forgotten by everyone. Civil rights lawyers reached out. They needed plaintiffs brave enough to challenge segregation in court, and Claudette said yes. She became one of the 4 women in Browder v. Gale, the case that would ultimately strike down bus segregation in Montgomery. Imagine the courage it took, a teenage girl standing up not just to a bus driver, but to an entire system built on centuries of oppression. Her testimony helped dismantle the law that had humiliated her and millions like her. And yet for decades, her name barely appeared in history books. While Rosa Parks became a symbol known around the world, Claudette watched quietly from the sidelines,
proud but overlooked. The world celebrated the movement she helped spark, but no one asked her how it felt to be the first spark in a fire that would change a nation. Years later, when asked why she did it, Claudette said, "I felt like Sojourner Truth was pushing down on one shoulder and Harriet Tubman on the other, saying, 'Sit down, girl.' I couldn't move." Those words carried the weight of generations. She wasn't just a teenager. She was history's voice breaking free through the mouth of a child. She didn't just refuse to give up her seat. She refused to surrender her dignity. Today, Claudette Colvin's name is finally being spoken in schools, documentaries, and history lessons that once forgot her. She's been honored, celebrated, and recognized as the girl who sat so others could stand. Her story reminds us that heroes don't always look like adults with speeches and cameras. Sometimes they're teenagers with shaking hands, clutching school books, daring to say one simple word: no. The bus where she sat is long gone. The streets of Montgomery have changed, but her defiance still echoes in every protest, every march, every voice that refuses to be silenced. Claudette Colvin didn't just keep her seat, she gave us all a place in history. Because sometimes change begins not with a leader, but with a 15-year-old girl who dared to stay seated when the whole world told her to stand.